On the rooftop of a glass skyscraper in downtown Seattle, a helicopter sat waiting, keys in the ignition, fuel tank full. CEO Chloe Kensington paced in her tailored black suit, phone pressed to her ear, voice sharp with urgency. She needed to fly. Now. A multi-million-dollar contract depended on it. Two assistants scrambled beside her, calling every backup pilot in the city. All unavailable. Then a man in a gray janitor's uniform stepped forward, mop still in hand. "I can fly it," he said quietly. The assistants burst into laughter. Chloe looked him up and down, then smirked coldly. "Fly this helicopter, and I'll marry you." None of them knew they'd just mocked one of the finest military pilots America had ever trained. Chloe Kensington was 29 years old and already running Kensington Aerospace, a mid-size aviation company her late father had built from nothing. She'd inherited his office, his board, and his reputation for being ruthless. Her dark brown hair was always pulled into a tight bun. Her blazers were sharp. Her heels clicked like gavels on marble floors. Everyone at the company feared her, and she preferred it that way. She had a saying she repeated to herself every morning before meetings. Never let emotion touch the cockpit. It applied to business. It applied to life. Years ago, she'd been engaged to a man named Derek. He'd been charming, ambitious, supportive, until the day her father died and she became CEO. Then he left, said he couldn't handle being Mr. Kensington. The betrayal hardened her. She stopped trusting people. She stopped believing in love. Now, she believed in contracts, numbers, and control. Her company was on the verge of landing a historic deal with SkyTech, a tech conglomerate looking to modernize its private fleet. The contract was worth 8 figures. It would cement Kensington Aerospace as a national player. But SkyTech's executives were old school. They wanted face-to-face meetings, handshakes, eye contact. Chloe had scheduled the final signing at their headquarters across the city. The helicopter was her solution to Seattle's notorious traffic. Everything had been planned perfectly. Until the pilot called in from the hospital with a broken wrist. Liam Walker was 32, though most people at Kensington Aerospace barely noticed him. He worked the late shift, mopping floors, wiping down windows, emptying trash bins in the executive wing. He wore the same gray uniform every day, kept his head down, and never made small talk. He was tall, lean, with short brown hair and tired eyes. People assumed he was just another guy trying to get by. What they didn't know was that Liam had once worn a different uniform. He'd been Captain Liam Walker, United States Army, helicopter pilot with 2 tours overseas and a chest full of commendations. He'd flown Black Hawks in combat zones, evacuated wounded soldiers under fire, and earned a reputation as one of the most precise pilots in his unit. But that life ended 3 years ago, when his wife, Sarah, died in a car accident on a rainy highway outside Tacoma. She'd been 8 months pregnant. Liam had been overseas when it happened. He came home to an empty house and a 5-month-old son named Finn, born premature and fighting for his life in the ICU. Liam left the military after that. He couldn't fly anymore. Every time he sat in a cockpit, he saw Sarah's face. He heard the voicemail she'd left him the night she died, telling him she loved him and couldn't wait for him to meet their baby. So he walked away. He took the first job he could find that didn't require a resume, didn't ask questions, and let him bring Finn to work when daycare fell through. Kensington Aerospace hired him as a janitor. Nobody cared. Nobody looked twice. That's exactly what he wanted. Finn was 5 now, small for his age, with his mother's blonde hair and Liam's quiet demeanor. He didn't talk much, but he loved airplanes. He carried a little notebook everywhere, filled with crayon drawings of helicopters, jets, and imaginary flying machines. Sometimes Liam brought him to the office after hours. Finn would sit in the hallway, drawing, while Liam worked. One night, a senior assistant named Marianne had yelled at Finn for touching a scale model of a vintage propeller plane in the lobby. Liam had apologized quietly, taken Finn's hand, and left without a word. Chloe had been there. She'd watched the whole thing. For a moment, she'd almost said something. But she didn't. She just walked past them and went back to her office. There was one other thing people didn't know about Liam. A few weeks ago, he'd been cleaning the simulation room late at night when he noticed one of the flight training rigs was malfunctioning. The rotor blade mechanism was jammed. Without thinking, he'd set down his mop, opened the panel, and fixed it in under 10 minutes. He didn't report it. He just moved on. But Chloe had seen him through the glass wall. She'd paused, watched his hands work with the kind of precision that didn't come from YouTube tutorials. Then she'd walked away, dismissing it as luck. She had no idea what she'd just witnessed. The day of the SkyTech signing arrived like a ticking bomb. Chloe had been awake since 4 in the morning, reviewing documents, rehearsing her pitch, checking every detail. The helicopter was scheduled to leave at 9. The meeting was at 10:30. No room for error. At 8:45, her phone rang. It was the pilot. He'd been in a car accident on the way to the helipad. Minor injuries, but his wrist was fractured. He couldn't fly. Chloe's stomach dropped. She immediately called her assistant, Jordan, a nervous young man who handled logistics. "Find me another pilot, now." Jordan made 15 calls in 10 minutes. Every charter service in Seattle was booked or couldn't mobilize in time. The backup pilot they kept on retainer was in Vancouver for a family emergency. The third option had his license temporarily suspended. Chloe stood on the rooftop, staring at the helicopter. It was right there. Fueled. Ready. Useless. Marianne, the senior assistant, stood beside her, phone in hand, shaking her head. "We're out of options. We'll have to drive." Chloe clenched her jaw. "We'll never make it in time." Jordan looked pale. "Maybe we can reschedule?" Chloe shot him a look that could cut steel. SkyTech doesn't reschedule. If we're not there, the deal dies. The rooftop fell silent, except for the hum of the city below. That's when Liam stepped out of the stairwell. He'd been cleaning the executive bathroom on the floor below when he overheard the commotion. He walked toward them slowly, carrying a bucket and a mop. Chloe barely glanced at him. Then Liam stopped a few feet away and spoke, his voice calm and even. "I can fly it." The words hung in the air for a moment. Then Marianne laughed. It wasn't a polite chuckle. It was loud, condescending, the kind of laugh meant to humiliate. Jordan joined in nervously. "You? Seriously?" Marianne said, shaking her head. "What? You think this is a video game?" Liam didn't react. He just stood there, hands at his sides, waiting. Chloe turned to look at him fully for the first time. She took in the janitor's uniform, the quiet posture, the complete lack of bravado. She didn't believe him. Not for a second. But she was desperate. And something about the way he'd said it, so plainly, so without hesitation, made her pause. She stepped closer, folding her arms, and looked him in the eye. "You're telling me you can fly a Bell 407 helicopter?" Liam nodded once. "Yes, ma'am," Marianne scoffed. "This is insane." Chloe studied Liam's face. There was no fear there. No doubt. Just calm. It reminded her of something, though she couldn't place what. She made a decision. A reckless one. She smiled, cold and sharp, and said the words that would change everything. "Fly this helicopter, and I'll marry you." Marianne's jaw dropped. Jordan looked like he'd swallowed his phone. Liam's expression didn't change. He just nodded again, set down his mop, and walked toward the helicopter. Chloe watched him go, half expecting him to stop, to admit it was a joke. He didn't. He climbed into the pilot's seat, fastened the harness, and placed his hands on the controls, like he'd done it 1,000 times before. The helicopter's engine roared to life. The rotor blades began to spin, slowly at first, then faster, cutting through the morning air with a deep, rhythmic thrum. Chloe stood frozen on the rooftop, her hair whipping around her face. Marianne grabbed her arm. "You're not actually getting in that thing." Chloe pulled away. "We don't have a choice." She climbed into the passenger seat, fastened her seatbelt, and put on the headset. Liam's voice came through, clear and professional. "Ready?" Chloe's heart pounded. She nodded. "Let's go." The helicopter lifted off smoothly, rising above the skyscraper, with the kind of precision that only came from years of experience. Chloe gripped the edge of her seat. Her breath caught in her throat. Below them, Marianne and Jordan stood on the rooftop, staring up in stunned silence. Liam flew like a ghost. No wasted movements, no hesitation. He adjusted altitude with a touch so light the helicopter barely tilted. He banked left over Elliott Bay, threading between air traffic corridors with the confidence of someone who'd done this in far more dangerous skies. Chloe couldn't take her eyes off him. His hands moved over the controls with a kind of quiet elegance. His eyes scanned the instruments, the horizon, the airspace around them, absorbing everything at once. This wasn't luck. This wasn't beginner's confidence. This was mastery. She tried to speak, but her voice caught. Finally, she managed, "Where did you learn to fly?" Liam didn't look at her. "I used to do this for a living." His tone was neutral, almost detached. Chloe's mind raced. Who was this man? The flight took 12 minutes. Liam set the helicopter down on the Skytech landing pad with a feather-light touch, the kind of landing that didn't even rattle the coffee cup in the center console. He powered down the engine, removed his headset, and stepped out without a word. Chloe sat in her seat, gripping the armrests, staring straight ahead. Her entire body was trembling, but not from fear, from shock, from the realization that she'd just been flown across the city by a janitor who handled a multi-million-dollar aircraft like it was second nature. She unbuckled slowly, climbed out, and walked toward the building entrance where the Skytech executives were waiting. Liam stood by the helicopter, hands in his pockets, watching her go. She turned back, met his eyes, and asked the question she couldn't hold in any longer. "Who are you?" Liam's expression softened, just slightly. "Someone who used to matter," he said quietly. Then he turned and walked back toward the helicopter. Chloe stood there, frozen, as the automatic doors of Skytech's headquarters slid open behind her. She forced herself to move, to walk inside, to put on her CEO mask and shake hands and smile and talk numbers. But her mind was somewhere else. It was on a rooftop, with a man in a gray uniform who'd just flown her across the city without breaking a sweat. The meeting went perfectly. She signed the contract. Skytech's CEO congratulated her. But when she stepped back outside an hour later, the helicopter was gone. And so was Liam. That evening, Chloe sat alone in her corner office, staring at her computer screen. She pulled up the company's employee database and typed in Liam's name. Liam Walker. Hired 8 months ago. Position: janitorial staff. No prior employment listed. No references. No background check beyond a basic criminal record scan, which came back clean. It was the kind of file you'd expect from someone who didn't want to be noticed. Chloe leaned back in her chair, tapping her pen against the desk. Then she made a call. Not to HR. To an old friend who worked in military records. She didn't know why. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the way Liam had moved in that cockpit, like a soldier, like someone trained under fire. Her friend called back 2 hours later. "You sitting down?" he asked. Chloe's pulse quickened. "Just tell me." Her friend's voice was low, almost reverent. Liam Walker. Captain. U.S. Army. Helicopter pilot. 2 tours. Decorated. Honorable discharge. 3 years ago. Chloe's hand tightened around the phone. Why did he leave? There was a pause. His wife died. Car accident. He had a newborn son. He walked away from everything. Chloe closed her eyes. The room felt smaller suddenly. Anything else? Her friend hesitated. Yeah. He's got a Medal of Valor. Pulled 6 guys out of a hot zone under enemy fire. The guy's a legitimate hero, Chloe. She hung up without saying goodbye. For a long time, she just sat there, staring at the city lights outside her window. A hero. A father. A man who'd lost everything and chosen to disappear. And she'd mocked him. She'd laughed at him. She'd made a cruel joke about marriage while he stood there, silent and composed, asking for nothing. Over the next few days, Chloe began to notice things she'd never paid attention to before. She saw Liam in the hallways, moving quietly between floors, emptying trash, wiping down glass doors. She saw him in the break room at midnight, heating up leftovers in a microwave, while Finn slept on a bench nearby, clutching his notebook. She saw the way Liam adjusted Finn's blanket without waking him. The way he checked his son's forehead for fever with the back of his hand. The way he whispered, "I've got you, buddy," even though Finn was fast asleep. One night, she saw Liam carry Finn down to the company's small medical office because the boy had a low-grade fever. He didn't ask for help. He didn't complain. He just handled it. The way he seemed to handle everything. Alone. Quietly. Without expecting anything from anyone. Chloe started watching him the way she used to watch flight simulations, analyzing every detail. She noticed that Liam never ate in the cafeteria. He brought his own food, usually a sandwich and an apple, and ate in the stairwell. She noticed that he always arrived exactly on time and left exactly when his shift ended, never a minute early. She noticed that he avoided eye contact with executives, kept his head down, and spoke only when spoken to. He was invisible by design. And the more she watched, the more she realized something that made her chest ache. Liam wasn't hiding because he was ashamed. He was hiding because he was protecting something. His son. His peace. The fragile, quiet life he'd built in the wreckage of his old one. One evening, Chloe stayed late in the office, deliberately. She knew Liam's shift ended at 11. She waited in the lobby, pretending to review documents on her tablet. At 10:50, Liam walked through with Finn on his shoulders. The boy, half asleep, head resting against his father's. Chloe stood up. "Liam." He stopped, turning slowly. His expression was guarded. "Miss Kensington." She hesitated, suddenly unsure of herself. "I never thanked you." "For the flight." Liam shrugged. "Just doing what needed to be done." Chloe took a breath. "I know who you are. What you were." Liam's jaw tightened. For the first time, she saw something flicker in his eyes. Not anger. Something closer to resignation. "Then you know. I'm not that person anymore." Chloe nodded slowly. "Maybe. But you're still someone." Finn stirred on Liam's shoulders, mumbling something about airplanes. Liam gently lowered him to the ground. And the boy leaned against his father's leg, eyes half closed. Chloe crouched down to Finn's level. "Hi, Finn." The boy blinked at her, then looked up at his dad. Liam gave a small nod. Finn looked back at Chloe. "You're the lady from the office." Chloe smiled. "That's me. I hear you like airplanes." Finn's face brightened slightly. He pulled his notebook from his backpack and showed her a drawing. It was a helicopter, surprisingly detailed for a 5-year-old, with rotors and a tail boom and little stick figures inside. "This is my dad," Finn said, pointing to one of the figures. "He's the best pilot in the world." Chloe's throat tightened. She glanced up at Liam, who was looking away, jaw set. "I believe you," she said softly. That night, Chloe couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Finn's drawing, about the way Liam had looked when his son called him the best pilot in the world, about the weight of a life lived in the shadows. She thought about her own life, the contracts, the board meetings, the empty apartment she went home to every night, the emails she answered at 2 in the morning because there was nothing else to do. She'd built an empire, but she'd built it alone, and for the first time in years, she wondered if that was really what she wanted. The next morning, she made a decision. She called Liam into her office. He arrived 10 minutes later, still in his uniform, looking cautious. "Am I in trouble?" he asked. Chloe shook her head. "No. I want to offer you something." She explained that Skytech had reached out after hearing about the flight. They wanted to bring in a consultant to help design their new pilot training simulators. Someone with real-world experience. Someone who understood aviation at the highest level. They'd asked if Kensington Aerospace had anyone on staff who fit the bill. Chloe had thought of Liam immediately. "It's a 6-month contract," she said. "Good pay, flexible hours. You'd be working with engineers, not executives. And it's remote, mostly. You could do it from home." Liam stared at her. "Why are you doing this?" Chloe met his gaze. "Because you're wasted mopping floors." Liam was quiet for a long time. Then he shook his head. "I appreciate it. But no." Chloe blinked. "Why not?" Liam's voice was firm, but not unkind. "Because I don't need to be noticed. I don't need a title. I just need Finn to be safe and happy. That's it." Chloe didn't push. She just nodded. But as Liam turned to leave, she said one more thing. "You know, you don't have to disappear to protect him. You can be both. A father and a pilot." Liam paused at the door, his back to her. He didn't respond. He just walked out. But Chloe saw the way his shoulders had tensed. The way he'd hesitated. She knew she'd hit something true. Late one night, Chloe found herself wandering the empty floors of the building. She didn't know why. Maybe she needed to think. Maybe she just didn't want to go home. She ended up in the engineering wing, near the old simulation bay. The lights were dim. The hallway was silent. Then she heard a sound. A soft, broken sound. Crying. She followed it and found Finn sitting on the floor outside the simulation room. Knees pulled to his chest, tears streaming down his face. Chloe's heart clenched. She knelt beside him. "Finn? What's wrong? Where's your dad?" Finn hiccuped, wiping his eyes. "He's inside. He said he needed a minute." Chloe looked through the glass window of the simulation room. Liam was sitting in one of the flight rigs, head in his hands, shoulders shaking. Chloe's breath caught. She'd never seen him like this. She turned back to Finn. "Did something happen?" Finn nodded, his voice small. "He had a bad dream." "About Mommy." Chloe closed her eyes. She sat down beside Finn, not sure what to say. After a moment, Finn leaned against her. "I miss her too," he whispered. Chloe wrapped an arm around him. "I know, sweetheart. I know." They sat like that for a while, silent, until the door to the simulation room opened and Liam stepped out. His eyes were red, but his face was composed. He saw Chloe and froze. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't know anyone was here." Chloe stood, gently guiding Finn toward his father. "It's okay." Liam picked up Finn, holding him close. The boy buried his face in his father's shoulder. Liam looked at Chloe, and for the first time, she saw something raw in his eyes. Vulnerability. Pain. "I used to be in control," he said quietly. "I used to know exactly what to do. Now, I don't know anything." Chloe's voice was soft. "You're doing fine, Liam." He shook his head. "I'm barely holding it together." Chloe stepped closer. "You flew across a city to save my deal. You're raising a beautiful kid. You're holding it together better than most people ever could." Liam's voice cracked. "I lost control once. In Afghanistan. My co-pilot got hit. I had to choose between landing and saving him or finishing the mission. I chose the mission. He lived, but barely. I got a medal. He got a wheelchair. I've been second-guessing every decision I've made since." Chloe felt tears sting her eyes. "Liam." He looked away. "I left the military because I couldn't trust myself anymore. Then Sarah died, and I couldn't even protect her. So I disappeared. Because if I'm nobody, I can't fail anyone. Chloe's heart broke. She reached out and touched his arm. You're not nobody, and you haven't failed anyone. Liam met her eyes. And for a moment, the walls between them crumbled. Chloe spoke again, her voice trembling. I was engaged once, to a man I thought loved me. But the day I became CEO, he left. Said he couldn't handle being second. So, I decided I'd never be second again. I'd never let anyone close enough to hurt me. She paused. But I think I've been failing too. Just in a different way. They stood there in the dim hallway, two broken people holding their pieces together with sheer will. Finn had fallen asleep against Liam's chest. Chloe looked at the boy, then back at Liam. You said you used to fly for your country. What if you flew for yourself? What if you let yourself be great again? Liam's voice was barely a whisper. I don't know if I can. Chloe smiled, just a little. Then, maybe I can help you remember. The next day, Chloe's father arrived at the office, unannounced. Roger Kensington was 72, silver-haired, broad-shouldered, and still commanded a room like a general. He'd built Kensington Aerospace from the ground up, and even though he'd officially retired, everyone knew he still pulled strings. He walked into Chloe's office without knocking. We need to talk. Chloe looked up from her desk. About what? Roger's voice was cold. About the janitor. Chloe's stomach dropped. How did you? Roger slammed a folder on her desk. You think I don't have eyes in this building? You let some nobody fly our helicopter. You're spending time with him. People are talking, Chloe. Chloe stood, her voice sharp. That nobody is a decorated war hero. He saved my deal with Skytech. Roger's face darkened. I don't care if he's got a chest full of medals. He's a janitor. He's got a kid. He's got baggage. And he's not stepping foot into this family. Chloe's hands clenched into fists. You don't get to decide that. Roger leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. I built this company. I built this legacy. And I will not watch you throw it away for some broken soldier who mops floors. Chloe's voice shook with rage. He's not broken. He's the most whole person I've ever met. Roger stared at her. You're making a mistake. Chloe met his eyes, unflinching. Then I'll make it. And if you can't accept that, I'll resign. The room went silent. Roger's expression shifted from anger to shock. You wouldn't. Chloe's voice was steady. Try me. Roger stood there for a long moment, then turned and walked out without another word. Chloe sat down, her hands trembling. She'd just threatened to walk away from everything she'd built, and she meant it. Meanwhile, Skytech sent another offer. This time, directly to Liam. They wanted him to perform a live flight demonstration at their annual global summit, a showcase of precision flying for investors and partners. In exchange, they'd fund a full scholarship for Finn at one of the best private schools in Seattle. Liam read the email 3 times. He didn't know how they'd gotten his contact information. He suspected Chloe. He wanted to say no. He'd spent 3 years avoiding the spotlight. But then, he thought about Finn. About the opportunities his son could have. About the future he couldn't provide on a janitor's salary. He showed the email to Chloe. She read it carefully, then looked at him. What do you want to do? Liam's voice was uncertain. I don't know. Chloe leaned forward. This isn't about the contract. It's about you, about Finn, about stepping back into the light. Liam was quiet for a long time. Then he said, What if I'm not ready? Chloe's voice was gentle. You flew me across this city without flinching. You're ready. Liam looked at her, and something shifted in his expression. Trust, hope, fear, all at once. Will you be there? Chloe nodded. Every second. Liam took a breath. Okay, I'll do it. The day of the demonstration arrived. The event was held at Skytech's private airfield, a sprawling complex south of Seattle. Hundreds of people filled the hangar and the viewing stands. Investors, engineers, executives, press. Chloe stood near the flight line, wearing a headset, acting as Liam's ground support. It was the first time she'd ever taken a support role, and she didn't mind at all. Liam stood by the helicopter, dressed in a borrowed flight suit, looking calm. Finn was beside him, holding his hand, wearing a tiny pair of aviator sunglasses. The boy was grinning. "You're gonna be awesome, Dad." Liam knelt down, adjusting Finn's sunglasses. "You think so?" Finn nodded. "You're the best pilot in the world. Remember?" Liam's throat tightened. He kissed his son's forehead, then stood and walked toward the helicopter. Chloe's voice came through his headset. "Ready?" Liam climbed into the cockpit. "Ready?" The engine roared to life. The crowd went silent. Liam lifted off smoothly, rising into the clear blue sky. He performed a series of maneuvers. Precision turns, hovering holds, altitude changes, all executed with flawless control. The crowd watched in awe. Finn stood on the sidelines, jumping up and down, waving both arms. "That's my dad! That's my dad!" Chloe felt tears stream down her face. She didn't bother wiping them away. When Liam landed, the entire crowd erupted in applause. He stepped out of the helicopter, and Finn ran to him, leaping into his arms. Liam held his son tight. And for the first time in 3 years, he smiled. Really smiled. Later that evening, Chloe returned to her apartment to find an envelope slipped under her door. Inside was a handwritten note from her father. It said, "You were right. Any man who would risk everything for his child deserves more respect than I gave him. I'm sorry, and I'm proud of you." Chloe sat on her couch, holding the note, crying for the second time that day. Liam used the scholarship fund to enroll Finn in school, but he didn't stop there. He started working with a non-profit that provided free flight training to underprivileged kids. Chloe quietly donated the funding to keep it running. She never told Liam, but he found out anyway. One afternoon, Finn brought home a school assignment. The prompt was, "Write about your hero." Finn's essay was 3 pages long, written in big, wobbly letters. It started, "My hero is my dad, but my other hero is Miss Chloe. She helped my dad remember he's a pilot, and she makes him smile." Liam read it sitting at their small kitchen table. He folded the paper carefully and put it in his wallet. That weekend, Chloe went to the rooftop. She didn't know why. Maybe nostalgia. Maybe hope. When she arrived, she found Liam there, cleaning the helicopter like he used to clean the floors. She smiled. "Old habits?" Liam looked up, grinning. "Something like that." Chloe walked over. "You know, I never actually meant what I said that day about marrying you." Liam set down his rag. "I know." Chloe's voice softened. "But what if I meant it now?" Liam froze. He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw everything she wasn't saying, the hope, the fear, the love. He stepped closer. "Are you sure?" Chloe nodded. "I've never been more sure of anything." The sun was setting over Seattle, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. On the rooftop of Kensington Aerospace, beside the helicopter that had started it all, Liam Walker knelt down on one knee. In his hand was a simple silver ring, engraved with 2 small wings. "I used to fly for my country," he said, his voice steady. "But now, I want to fly for 2 people, you and Finn, if you'll have me." Chloe's vision blurred with tears. "Yes." Liam slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into his arms. Finn, who had been hiding behind a ventilation unit with a bouquet of flowers, ran out shouting, "Does this mean she's staying forever?" Chloe laughed through her tears. "Forever. Finn cheered. "Dad, you did it." They boarded the helicopter together, all three of them. Liam in the pilot's seat, Chloe beside him, Finn in the back, clutching his notebook. The engine hummed to life. The rotors spun, and as the helicopter lifted off into the golden Seattle sky, Chloe looked at Liam and thought about how far they'd come, from a cruel joke on a rooftop to a family taking flight together.